Welcome back everyone to another episode of Tyler's Fishing Post, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about my favorite bait, the speedworm, how I work it, how I rig it, how I fish it and catch big fish on this bait. So stay tuned, make sure you subscribe, comment your feedback down below. I'd love to hear y'all's feedback, really appreciate it. Like up the video if you enjoy content like this, and I will continue to do more content like this. Really appreciate everyone for subscribing. We're on the road to 4,000 subscribers, so make sure you're subscribed, and let's jump into today's video. So over the past several years on the YouTube channel, a lot of you have seen the main bait I throw on the channel, and that is the speedworm. The Zoom June Bug Red speedworm, to be specific. That is the main bait I throw out here on the Harris chain mainly. And when I'm in clear areas, I like to throw watermelon red, watermelon seed, anything that's like more of a natural color in like cleaner waters. But for the Harris chain mostly, June Bug Red is where it is at, the Zoom speedworm. I throw it all the time, and I've caught a lot of fish on it on the Harris chain, if you all have seen. Doing it, like working it a lot of different ways, rigging it a bunch of different ways on different setups, having it Texas rigged, Carolina rigged, do a lot of different stuff with this bait and catch so many fish on it. I wouldn't say I catch a whole lot of giant fish on it, but I feel like the smaller Zoom speedworm catches more fish than the bigger speedworm. And I felt like the bigger speedworms catch bigger fish and the smaller speedworms get like the most amount of bites. And that's why I like throwing the smaller speedworm, is to catch the most amount of fish possible on this bait, y'all. So starting off with how I like to rig it, this is a different speedworm. I have like a bigger speedworm setup right here. This is the Bitters speedworm. It's a little bit bigger than the Zoom, and I have it rigged with a 1/4 ounce weight, bobber stop, and a 5/0 wide gap hook. And that is the setup I would be using if I was throwing a bigger speedworm like this. And if y'all have seen on the YouTube channel, I've actually caught some giant fish in yesterday's video. If y'all have subscribed and seen that video, it was pretty epic, and this is the exact setup I had to catch all those fish yesterday. It was basically the 5/0 hook, the weight, and the bait. Oh, that rhymes. I wasn't even planning for that. But yeah, y'all, this is how I rig it for bigger speedworms. If you're throwing a smaller speedworm like this, I'd probably downsize the hook slightly. I'd probably go with a 4/0 straight shank. I like using the straight shank hooks because I feel like it's just a little bit smaller, and like the fish can just like suck it in a little bit better. Because like this bait, if you're throwing this hook with this bait, it's a little overkill. I think it's a little overkill unless like you're strictly fishing for 10 pounders. But I also would probably recommend either a wide gap or straight shank, whichever one works for you. I feel like I get a better hookup ratio on the wide gap hooks when throwing speedworms. I've been experimenting with it, and I've not lost a whole lot of fish with wide gap hooks than I used to with straight shank hooks. I lost a lot of fish on those hooks, but that's what I did like the past couple years. That's what I used with straight shank hooks for the speedworms, especially the little speedworms. I use straight shanks. But if you're gonna throw this guy, I would recommend a 3/16 ounce weight, depending on what you're fishing. The weight is basically the factor on where you're fishing. Are you fishing shallow cover? Are you fishing topped out hydrilla? Are you fishing canals? Like, I would be throwing a 3/16 ounce weight if you're fishing shallower waters, or if you're fishing really condensed thick cover that might be in shallow water, might not be. I feel like if I was fishing super thick hydrilla and I was dragging a speedworm through that, I'd be using a 3/16 ounce weight with a 4/0 hook with the speedworm. Bobber stopper, of course, and that's what I'd be using for that setup as well. So two different little setups for depending like what size speedworm you're throwing. And if you're fishing offshore cover, if you're fishing brush, if you're fishing a shell bar or something, I'd probably go with the 1/4 ounce weight on this little setup as well. It's just the weight is the factor depending on where you're fishing. If you're fishing offshore cover, if you're fishing shallow. So if you want the bait to get down there a little bit quicker and you want it to stick to the bottom, then I'd probably be throwing a heavier weight. But if you are swimming a speedworm, I'd be using a 3/16 ounce weight all day. If you're swimming a speedworm, if you're just swimming it through cover, swimming it through grass, if you're working at the top of Kissimmee grass or whatever, I'd be using a lighter weight. So that's the setups, depending on what you're doing. I feel like a lot of shallow water fishermen, you're gonna be wanting that 3/16 ounce weight because this is also a top water. Like, what? This is a worm. This ain't a top water. It is a top water. Guarantee you, it is a top water. I have caught so many fish, like just reeling across the top of the water with the speedworm, because if you look at it, it gets it's pretty similar to a swim bait if you think about it. So you got the body here and then you got the tail, same thing with a swim bait. Same exact thing. The swim bait does displace more water and it has a better action. But if you don't have time to rig up a swim bait real quick, just fire this in there and just reel it as fast as you can across the top of the water. And if you get a blow up, then you're like, they're in there, I'll switch to the swim bait. But as the Speedworm goes, like, it doesn't displace as much water as you're working it across the top of the water, but it's a little bit stealthier. It's a little bit quieter. It's pretty nice. Like it's a pretty sneaky way of fishing. I don't know a whole lot of people that go around being like, oh, all I throw Speedworms as like top water. Like, I don't hear that a whole lot, but it's definitely a thing. It is definitely a thing. So there's a bunch of ways of working a Speedworm, and I'm gonna try to cover all of them and just name them off for you real quick on what those different ways are. I would say number 1, dragging. Number 2, just popping it. Number 3, swimming it. Number 4, swimming it in the top water. I'd probably say number 5 would be doing all of those things, but giving it more action, because you can pop a Speedworm all day long, but if you're just popping a Speedworm, bringing it up, and then you go boom, 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 and then let it sink back down, that's also a few different ways you can fish it as well. Same thing with dragging. You could be dragging a Speedworm, boom, 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 and then just keep on dragging. And that, I guarantee you, that gets the most amount of bites for me when I'm fishing a Speedworm, because you'll see many times, you'll see I'm dragging through grass, and then I just go boom, boom, and I pop out of the grass, and then just boom, the fish just nails it, because he just sees it just dart out of the grass, and the fish just like, oh, I want it, that. It's a reaction bite. So if you feel like the fish are chasing bait and they're like, they want it, they're feeding up top and they're just eating a bunch of bait and they're just destroying stuff, then you want to be swimming a Speedworm. You want to be swimming a Speedworm around like fish that are eating bait. But if they're being really slow and finicky and they're not wanting to eat, then you just need to just drag a Speedworm as slowly as possible. I know it's very painful, but if you are in a, if you're in a tough situation and you need to catch a fish real quick, throw a Speedworm out there in like grass, Kissimmee grass, grass edges. You can do a lot of different things. You can throw it a lot of different places, in canals, docks. You can do a lot of different things with it. But I feel like if the fish are being real picky, throw it out there, let it sink, and just as painfully, it's so painful, but just slowly just drag it, just very, very slowly. And then every once in a while, just go bing, bing, just lightly, just kind of a little tap there, and just slowly drag it. And that gets so many bites when the fish are being weird. When they're being weird and you're fishing grass, you just need to just slowly drag it. And that's the one way I like catching fish on Speedworms. That's the way I feel like catches the most fish, is dragging a Speedworm on the bottom, like slowly. And then there's times where you can just like have it sink to the bottom and then just kind of whip it real quick and it'll swim across the bottom. A bunch of different techniques to throw a Speedworm for sure. And then you can also pop it and just give it a little pop up as it's coming out of the brush. And there's a bunch of different ways of working a Speedworm. Comment down below if I missed any, or if there's any specific ways you like to fish a Speedworm. I think I've covered how to rig a Speedworm, how to fish it. Let me cover what types of water you want to be throwing it in. I would say you want to be fishing grass for sure. You want to be fishing maybe docks, canals. I have had some success swimming Speedworms in canals, but not a ton of success. I've had some success, but not a ton. And then docks, you can always flip a Speedworm around docks and catch fish. Kissimmee grass, you can flip it in Kissimmee grass. You can do a lot of different stuff, but I feel like the #1 deal is just throwing it along the Kissimmee grass edge, because normally there's eelgrass, peppergrass, normally there's grass right off of the Kissimmee grass line. Throwing a Speedworm down that and dragging it, fishing the offshore grass basically. It's not offshore, but it's right off the grass line. Throwing it there and just dragging it. If you're fishing the Harris Chain tomorrow, go to a Kissimmee grass stretch, throw a Speedworm straight down it, like get parallel with it, throw straight down it, and just drag a Speedworm. That is what I would do if I was fishing the Harris Chain tomorrow. And then if you can find grass patches, of course, throw it in grass patches, all that stuff as well. Super, had like so much success doing that, for sure. But if you've seen yesterday's video, you saw I was basically doing a lot of those things, just dragging it through the grass, dunk, fish just thumps it, sets the hook, boom, fish. Super easy way of fishing. It's my favorite way of fishing. I love catching fish doing it because you can get the gnarliest hook sets ever. If you've seen the brush pile clip where I caught 8-pounder out of a brush pile, that is the gnarliest hook set ever. Just popping it through the brush, just lightly popping it, and then just dunk, knock so much slack in my line. I go set the hook. It was over, y'all. It was over. So those are some ways I like to fish a Speedworm, how I have it set up, basically my thinking behind Speedworms. And it's an awesome bait, super awesome bait. There's some people coming out with some Speedworms in the future, which I'm super excited about and can't wait to try. So my main bait I like to throw for Speedworms is Zoom bitters. Awesome baits. And the setup I have it rigged up on is the 7.6 Vexen Medium Heavy. It is an awesome, phenomenal rod. If you saw the offshore fish, you saw completely bent over. It was such an epic fish catch, that one was, on the Speedworm. And then I have the Abu Garcia ALF reel. Not a huge fan of it, just so you know, just for all you out there. It's a decent reel, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would not recommend it. I'm looking at maybe switching reels for my my worm setup. But anyways, that is that. Like 15-pound Seaguar, that is the line I use as well. And that is going to do it for today's video. I think I've covered everything. Comment down below if I missed something. I'm so sorry if I missed anything. I'm trying to think of everything I would fish it in. Working across the top, of course, dragging it, popping it, like all those things right there. There you go, bam, boop, bop, right there. And if you've been watching the YouTube channel for a while now, you've seen that's all I do is throw a Speedworm, and I catch so many fish doing it. And you could as well. If you start throwing a Speedworm tomorrow, you're gonna catch way more fish than if you were throwing like, I don't want to diss any other baits out there because people will be like, oh, how dare he say a swim bait? I've been throwing a swim bait every day and caught giants on it. So yeah, you're gonna catch more fish if you didn't throw it. I'll say that. If you didn't throw the Zoom Speedworm, you'll catch more fish. There you go. There's that. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm gonna wrap it up here. I appreciate each and every single one of you for watching this video. Comment down below if you want to see future videos like this, because I am down to do more videos like this that don't involve me fishing for 12 hours every single day to get one singular video done. I can just pull up into a grass line, set up the camera for y'all, and just let y'all know, give you all the secrets and the juice, the secret juicy stuff. If you saw today's video, oh, that color, oh, even the gold color, so epic, so epic. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see y'all for another episode of Tyler's Fishing Post. Bam!